Hello everyone, I'm Sandy Franks and this is StockBreakthroughs at TaipanFinancialNews.com, the first financial news show developed exclusively for the internet. Today we're going to talk about an industry that hasn't been covered in the media for quite some time now, yet it's posting some significant numbers. Just recently, the semiconductor industry reported that global sales of semiconductors reached a record $247 billion in 2006, an increase of 8.9% from the $227.5 billion reported in 2005. On top of that, worldwide sales of semiconductors of $21.47 billion in January 2007 were 9% higher than January 2006. Sales growth has largely been driven by popular consumer products such as cell phones, MP3 players, and high-definition television sets. Now that you know how well the semiconductor market has been doing, let's find out if there's a particular stock you should consider adding to your portfolio. Here with me now is Steve Lord, Senior Editor for the Trend Investor Group and editor of the monthly publication Trend Investor. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Steve, you've been following the semiconductor market for some time now. Found any stocks worth mentioning?
Oh, absolutely. One stock I've been recommending lately in Trend Investor is a smallish semiconductor firm that dominates the market for GPS chips, global positioning system chips. Its name is Surf Technologies, and it controls about 70% of the global market for these GPS chipsets. It's positioned itself very quickly to become a prime beneficiary of the move we're seeing of GPS into ever more devices.
But isn't GPS market predominantly spurred by the automotive industry?
Yes, right now it is. Cars have been the key driver for GPS in the last decade. A lot more drivers are opting for GPS in-dash systems instead of maps to find their way around. But mobile phones are starting to ship with GPS. And this is the market that's going to provide the next wave of growth for GPS chipset applications.
So cell phones will be the largest area of growth for GPS systems?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, it's going to end up being a lot larger than the automotive market. And you have to figure there's about annual sales of 1 billion cell phones worldwide every year, compared to only about 60 million cars. Plus, you're seeing GPS going into laptops, PDAs, even digital cameras are starting to ship with GPS into them. So GPS chipset shipments are growing at a pretty fast rate. They should go from about 100 million this year to 450 million by 2010. That's a 43 or 44% compounded rate of growth.
That's a pretty good growth rate. So basically, almost every gadget we use will have some GPS component with it, which, as we stated, is a big market.
Right.
Now that we know the broad market picture for this industry, let's talk specifically about the stock you've uncovered. You say it's going to dominate this market, correct?
I do. As a matter of fact, it already does. 2006 sales grew about 47% to 248 million. And you have to realize this company did 15 million in sales in 2001. So it's growing like a weed, and it should reach about 330 million in sales this year. By 2008, the company could be booking 380, 390 million per year in annual sales.
And let's talk about company earnings. How do they compare to this time last year?
Earnings should grow to about, I don't know, $1.34, $1.35 in 2008. That compares to $1.14 last year. And the company blew the doors off fourth quarter in 2006 earnings estimates. I figure by 2010, gross margins should probably reach 60 or maybe a little higher than that. They're about 55% now. So this company could easily be earning $2 per share by that point.
And let's talk about the company's numbers compared to others in the industry. How do they stack up?
Well, it's interesting because they don't really have a great deal of direct competition in this particular niche. Like I said earlier, they own about 70% of the market. There are other chipset firms, Texas Instruments for one, but they have a very, very narrow niche. One interesting thing is, for instance, Surf has a chipset acquisition provider agreement with every major cell phone manufacturer in the world except for one. So
wow.
They have competition, clearly everybody does, but they've really locked it up.
Now, we talked about GPS being a global market, and I'm assuming China is a big part of that growth?
It is. China is a massive part of that growth, both from the chipset side and from the GPS penetration side, because a lot of these folks want to leapfrog a lot of the generational development we've seen in phones and laptops, and they want to go right to phones that have these capabilities already in them. I mean, the Asian cell phone makers have been on the leading edge of cell phone design for a long time, so actually a lot of the Chinese demand is what's been driving this move of GPS into new devices.
And that would make sense. I want to go right back now to the company's financials. What about cash? Do they have any on hand? Can they pay off debts?
Yes, absolutely. For a company in this industry, in the semiconductor industry, which is very cyclical, the firm is extremely strong. There is no debt. They have $150 million in cash in the bank, and they generate about $60 million a year in cash flow from operations. because the semiconductor industry has gone through an inventory surge late last year, and so it's correcting from that, the PEG ratio is only about 0.8. So it's an extremely value, oriented proposition at this point.
Now, we talked about this company dominating the market.
Right.
What strategic steps did it take to wind up becoming the main player in the market? In other words, do they have superior technology, more expertise in designing the systems?
Well, they did really sort of the old school way to growth. They developed expertise in a particular niche. They focused only on that niche. This is all these folks do. They don't make DRAM chips, they don't make flash memory, they make GPS chipsets. And what they've also done is they developed a reputation in the industry for quality. Their stuff is just extremely good, and that's why they've been able to get these supply agreements with Garmin, with TomTom, with all the cell phone makers, with all the laptop makers, because they're considered the gold standard in the industry. And they've stuck to their knitting. They know what they do, and they do it well.
Sort of like the old theory, if you focus on one thing, you become an expert at it.
Right, stick to your knitting.
Right.
And that's what they've done. They don't want to make chips for anything else. This is what they're good at. And I also think, speaking with the company, they understand what GPS is going to become. It's going to be like air conditioning eventually. A couple of, 10 years ago, you could buy cars without air conditioning, and now you really can't. Eventually, GPS is going to ship in every car, in every cell phone, and stuff like that.
Big market, sounds like a
Big
great
market.
Opportunity. So you're giving this company a green light to buy.
Absolutely. Stock's about 27.5 this morning. It's got a great future ahead of it, and you're really one of these. You're getting in at the lower end of one of these long-term trend investment ideas that I like to focus on. GPS is a wave that's coming, and this is a great way to play it.
Now, you said the stock was at 27?
27.5, right.
And where do you think it'll be in the next 12 months?
I think it's a $50 stock
Wow.
within the next 12 months, and I think, you play the trend over the next 3 or 4 years, it's a $100 stock.
That's great. That's actually incredible.
I hope so.
Well, thank you, Steve. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
As Steve mentioned, Surf is his latest recommendation, the April issue of Trend Investor. If you'd like more details, why not sign up for Trend Investor? That's it for this week's editions of Stock Breakthrough. I'm Sandy Franks, and I'll see you again soon. Until then, here's to great profits and smart investing.